Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2022 film We're All Going to the World's Fair, which is a very interesting title in my opinion, and there is a meaning to it, so look for it within the film. Since this is a new film, this is a no spoiler review, obviously. It's not a Shudder film, it's actually on HBO Max when I watched it. I heard a lot of good things about this film, so I wanted to check it out. Now, I do need to give a disclaimer. People are very high on this film, really, really like it. I'm not as into it, and I think a large part of that might be the fact that I typically don't like found footage films. Now, it's not exactly a found footage film, but it is kind of like a derivation of a found footage film. It's more in the lines of, like Host, what that kind of kicked off. It was like this pandemic online filmmaking type thing. And the film feels like it's very much born of the pandemic, and it focuses a lot on some things in the end, kind of like isolation and loneliness and kind of what that can do to you. So that's very important. But let me talk about this a little bit more. Written and directed by Jane Schoenbrun, who also did Big Brother Volcano and is doing something upcoming called I Saw the TV Glow, which also sounds like an interesting title. This is the film debut of Anna Cobb, who plays the main character, and she did a excellent job. The acting in this is wonderful. That's the big thing about it. The acting really sells what the script is trying to get across, so that is accomplished. It's great, and I think for that reason, a lot of people are going to enjoy the film. So what is the film about? I'll give you a quick synopsis without too much being given away. It's basically about a girl who lives alone, who honestly you only really see two characters in the film. Really only two characters. You hear some other people, but it's basically about this girl who's living alone, and she's has very much an online life in a sense, and a lot of it ends up being about online life. But she decides to record herself and do updates doing this online horror challenge, which that's a thing. I don't know if people know, there are all these like online horror challenges where it's like, say this person's name into the mirror a certain number of times, and something scary will happen, kind of like the whole like Bloody Mary thing, or kind of like Candyman, stuff like that. There's tons of these that just keep going on and on and on. So it's basically taking that idea and creating a found footage-esque horror film out of it. So it's a good concept. The film immediately says found footage, so pacing is expected to be an issue for me personally, but it's not fully found footage. So for that reason, I kind of have a problem, more of a problem than usual with the pacing of a found footage film, because I'm always going to dislike the pacing of found footage films. I just expect that. Like, I know that about it. The nature of what the subgenre of horror is calls for bad pacing, because it's literally like found footage. It's like footage that people just did, that they're not actually trying to make a nice, coherent, well-edited film. This isn't fully found footage, though, and that's my issue. So it definitely should have had better pacing to it, and I think a lot of the scenes should have been cut more. And what I mean by it's not exactly found footage is that, yes, there are those moments where it's like people recording themselves or recording other or something else, but there are plenty of scenes too where someone else is obviously recording that person and they're not a character in the film. So you can tell there's an actual camera person. It's from a different perspective. So it breaks the found footage idea. And for that reason, you're outside the bounds of found footage, in my opinion. So you don't any longer get the benefit of the doubt of, okay, well, the pacing is going to obviously suffer, and that's just baked into the subgenre. So I think they really should have done a much better job with the pacing. That's my biggest problem with this film. I think the pacing's terrible for the most part. That said, there are a lot of pluses to the film, and like I said, I'm not big into found footage films. I know a lot of people who are will probably have more of a tolerance for the pacing issues in this film. So I know there's a fan base for this film already. I know we'll find more fans, and that's a great thing. I love that fact, because I think every film should be able to find a fan base. Plus, there's a lot of work that went in this film, and you can tell, and like I said, there are some good things. The main character's personality is established very well in the beginning, and it's not done in like an overt way. This goes back to Anna Cobb doing a great job, but it's also the filmmakers kind of saying what they want out of this scene. and they kind of like slow play it with her personality. You just pick up on how she is. She's a very, meek individual, but things change over the course of the film, and you see changes in the personality. So establishing her personality in the beginning was very important, and it was very effectively done. The opening credits show where the main character lives, which actually helps with giving you the idea of her situation. It helps bring home the idea of kind of like an isolation and loneliness idea, which is then obviously reinforced as the film goes on. Quite a good score. I really liked the score for this. The music was very well done. Also, very restrained. That's one of the things I love. Going over the top and beating people over the head with music is a terrible thing. So when filmmakers, like in this case, are very restrained with their score, I love it. I think that's the way things should be. So good job on that. There is literally ASMR in this. And it goes on for way too long, in my opinion. Some people may really enjoy that if they're into ASMR. I'm not. ASMR actually kind of has the opposite effect on me, where it's kind of a little bit like nails on a chalkboard. It really drives me nuts. I can't listen to it. It's a sound I don't like. Although I should probably qualify that. There is some like noise-based ASMR that like I do find kind of pleasing, but like when it's people whispering, which is what's going on here, hate it. I cannot stand it. So, but in general, like I was saying, that scene goes on way too long, should have been edited down. There's a lot of those. It does have a cool, creepy, yet melancholy vibe to the entire film. So building an atmosphere, which I'm assuming that creepy yet melancholy atmosphere was intentional, did a great job creating that, did a great job maintaining that. So nice work on that one. About 40 minutes into the film is when things really do start to get interesting, because something kind of interesting actually happens. Now that said, this goes into the whole pacing issue. I don't feel like there are enough like breadcrumbs of interesting stuff that get kind of dropped as the film continues to go on. It's an hour and 25 minutes, and to be honest, it feels a lot longer. To me, personally, obviously, but yeah. There are some interesting transitions. I like the way transitions were done in this film quite a bit. So once again, from a technical standpoint, a lot of really good things going on with this film. The characters whisper too much at times. That causes some issue with audio, where you'll have your TV or your computer or whatever set at a certain volume, and you want to be able to watch the film at that volume instead of having to change it up and down, and this makes it so you have to mess with the volume. Yeah, that it's not a ton in the film, but there are definitely times where you're like, I really need to hear what's going on here, and I'm going to have to crank up the volume because this person is just whispering way too low. They should have cranked that up some. The film ends up becoming something different than what you expected in the beginning. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not giving anything away, don't worry. Experience it for yourself, for sure. And then the ending, I thought was kind of to me. I see the point that was being hinted at or presented to people, and decent point, but it just, I don't know. I think it's the pacing just really killed it for me, and you need momentum kind of going into an ending like that for it to have more impact for someone like me, and it just didn't do it. So it's just me. Since it's not actual found footage, then a bunch of scenes really should have been cut down. I'm going to reiterate that. This really actually seemed like it was a short film. This should have actually been a short film, in my opinion, not a feature length at an hour and 25 minutes. If it feels like it's being stretched at an hour and 25 minutes, it should just be a short film. And here's the thing. Host, which I brought up earlier, was like 58-minute runtime. You can cut it down. You should cut it down. That is a pretty tightly running film. The pacing in that is great. And it is a found footage type film. That's one I actually enjoyed. So it can be done. And it should be done that way. Yeah. Okay, I think that's actually it, because the last things I was just going to say is it plays off that kind of online horror challenge thing, which is, a current thing that goes on, which I think is ridiculous. And there's definitely an aspect about isolation and loneliness, which I already talked about. So now I want to hear from you if you've seen this film. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who are like, I actually loved it. that's great. Tell me what you really liked about it. Go ahead and put in the comments. But if you also didn't like it, tell me why you didn't like it. Give me like a sentence or two, or even if you're in the middle. Or if you just want to talk about nerdy horror stuff in general, go ahead and put it down there. We can talk spoilers in the comments. Go ahead. So just know this. There may be spoilers in the comments, people. People can do it. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate that. It literally keeps me motivated to keep doing these videos. It is quick, it is painless, it costs you nothing, and I really appreciate it, so thank you. Also hit the notification bell button, because then you know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing 4 a week at this point, which I'm putting in good work. I feel like that's a good amount, so pay me back by hitting subscribe and hitting the notification bell button. Regardless, thanks for taking your time to watch this particular video, and until next time, keep it brutal.